What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are more than just entertainment. They're a catalyst for meaningful conversation. I'm Jonathan Sprang, and I go by Sprang, and most weeks we dive into movies to watch in preparation for a new release hitting theaters. But we don't stop there. We talk about the morals, the values, and the life lessons these movies have to offer. This week, Kristen's going to join us for the Conjuring Series, and also POPpaGoss is going to be back on the show. We're very excited for that as we discuss the Conjuring proper movies. That's 1, 2, and 3. In preparation for Last Rites dropping Friday. We hope you'll go check out our website. It's bio.site/moviesthatmakeyou. There you'll find all of our links to all of our social media channels on YouTube, Instagram, and elsewhere. You can also find our podcast links to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also check out our letterbox, which shows you all of our lists on the movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you scream, and everything in between. Before we dive into this week's episode, though, let's take a look at the next 4 weeks on the Movies That Make You podcast. Next week, it's our 100th episode, and we're going to be going live September 6th. 12 p.m. Central, we will be shooting our live episode, our first live episode with the boys, and we are excited for that. Jacob's going to be joining us all the way from Montana, and each one of us, including Mom, will be on camera and on microphone in order for us to have a fun 100th episode. We'll be talking about the boys' top 5 favorite movies of all time. You won't want to miss it. September 6th, 12 p.m. Central. Be there. The week after that, we're doing a spotlight on Tom Hanks in honor of Apollo 13 being re-released. This is going to be an epic episode with 4 movies from Tom Hanks' catalog. We watched Big, Turner and Hooch, Forrest Gump, and Castaway to give the boys a little bit of insight into who Tom Hanks is as an actor. They knew him as Woody, but now they're going to know him as much more than that. So join us for that episode as we gear up to watch Apollo 13 in theaters. The week after that, we've got The Strangers Chapter 2 Prepisode. We watched The Strangers Pray at Night, and The Strangers Chapter 1. And I are going to be talking about those movies. They each had their own little flair to it, and we kind of dug it. So looking forward to the new one. So watch this episode so you can prepare to see Strangers Chapter 2. The week after that, we're going to be doing an episode called More Than the Fight. I've invited my good friend Nick Hot Coals Shepherd to be back on the show as we talk about 3 different fighting dramas, The Wrestler, The Fighter, and Warrior, all to gear up for The Smashing Machine hitting theaters that week. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson taking his stab at an A24 film. Heavy drama. Looks to be amazing. The week after that, hope those episodes excite you. So without further ado, let's get to the podcast. We are back with another episode of Movies That Make You podcast. I am Sprang, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, Kristen. How are you doing, babe?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Doing good. And we also have our good friend POPpaGoss in the house. What's up, dude?
Yay.
What is up, everyone?
Very cool, very cool. Excited to do this this podcast with 3 people. We've normally just done 2, but we thought for this episode it would be fun to kind of test the waters on having 3 people on the podcast. So excited to have this conversation. Today we're talking about the Conjuring movies. To clarify, we are not talking about all the Conjuring universe films. We're not going to talk about The Nun or The Curse of La Llorona, or I know I probably mispronounced that, but we're just going to focus on the 3 Conjuring movies that came out before Conjuring Last Rites, which drops this Friday. So we're excited to have this conversation. But before we jump into the movies, let's do what we call mustards, and let's catch up. Josh, how's your week, bud?
My week's been good. It's been pretty hectic, kind of calming down from last weekend. If you guys follow everybody on social media, there was Oklahoma City HorrorCon, which is becoming bigger and bigger. But Sprang and Kristen actually drove up to Oklahoma City, and we got to hang out on the Saturday, which was the busier day anyway. And it was a blast. I mean, we got to see some amazing panels. Sprang got to ask a couple questions, and I mean, the celebrities were all super nice. It was really cool. But that was a very fun weekend. Like, even at Frightmare and stuff, like, you don't get to, those bigger ones, you don't get to enjoy it as much, like all the extra stuff. Like, it's fun in the moment and meeting all the, big celebrities they have and stuff, but getting to just kind of like not worry about trying to navigate through humongous crowds, and the celebrities are not as chaotic, so you can kind of get in line and meet them and hang out a little bit longer than you normally would. So it was a lot of fun. And then Saturday, when you guys left, my son fell asleep early that night. So I drove back down for the karaoke that they did. And it wasn't very busy. There wasn't that many people there, but I walked in and Ari Lehman, the first Jason, was on stage. He has a band called First Jason, and he was singing, and there was a bunch of kids on stage, and he was like, "Let's do the cha-cha murderer shuffle," and was like, dance. So I filmed some of that, and then Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp hosted it, and Dave Sheridan, Officer Doofy from Scary Movie, they both hosted it, so they were hilarious. And then Dana De Lorenzo from Ash vs. Evil Dead actually showed up at about 10:30. She just walked in the room, and we were all just hanging out in there. And the best thing about that night, I ended up staying the whole night, but I know the guy who runs it, Rod, and he was asking me how Saturday went, and I was telling him how incredible that Scream panel was. Like, I've never been a part of a panel that was that gigantic, and I said, even at Frightmare, like, you don't see him that big. And that his face lit up. He was like, "Oh my God." So he introduced me to like all of his crew members that have been working for him for a long time. So the rest of the night, I just kind of networked. I hung out with the people who book the celebrities, the people who like get all their flights. I got to hear some of like the inside stories about the convention center, and it was a lot of fun. And then the coolest part was they did that Buried Alive challenge, and I was walking out downstairs and everyone was gathered around there, including Felissa Rose and Dave Sheridan. And we got to watch that end because I didn't know it ended at midnight that night. So ended up staying there and watched that. And then the unfortunate part was I got home and I went to sleep about 1 a.m. and my son, for whatever reason, woke up at 1:30 a.m. wide awake. So I had and then we had to go to the con on Sunday. So I was like, man, I gotta get a little bit of sleep in the morning. So that was pretty rough, but it was all worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Got to go to the silent auction, which is really cool. They did that, and they raised some money for Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, who I've talked to on Instagram a few times, and he's just like the sweetest man. But he's very, very ill right now, and he actually moved to Mexico, and he can't attend cons right now because he's just so sick. So
is he the main actor, like the main?
Yeah, he's the main
from wow.
Yeah, so that's what he's most famous for. They did a really awesome documentary about him on, I think Shudder did it. And you can find it, but it's very good. It follows his whole career and how, all the LGBTQ vibes that Nightmare on Elm Street 2 had, even though it was like that was frowned upon at the time when it came on. But now it has like this cult following, and all these people kind of can reference that film as like a very pivotal horror film. So
that's
Mark's
awesome.
just a sweetheart. I met him a couple years ago here, and he gave my son a free autograph. And so I think not a lot of people knew about the silent auction though, because I got upstairs. It was right when it ended at 5, and it was me and like 3 women that drove from Pryor, Oklahoma, and then it was like 3 crew members. That was it. And then they let it go for 2 hours, and then it was just silent auction style. And then this guy came in, this heavy collector came in at the very end, and he was like trying to outbid everybody. And then I outbid him for the Doug Bradley banner, like right before it ended. And then he was trying to like offer me money for it after. He's like, "I'll give you." He's like, "How much do you want for it?" I was like, I kind of just want to keep it for my office. It's pretty cool. So yeah, it was fun. But yeah, it was a blast seeing you guys. I love the panels we went to were really good. And on Sunday, I got to talk to some of the people we saw their panels, and I just thanked them all for like amazing, especially Jenna and what's her face from the Terrifier.
Is it Courtney?
Yeah,
Courtney,
those
maybe?
2, and then I met Elliot and his dad at his. I think it's so cool that his dad goes with him to the conventions and runs his table. But he and I had a really good conversation, and then I met Spencer from Ice Nine Kills, and I missed his panel on Sunday, but he was really cool. So it was nice to like always thank people. I ran really cute story. I'm gonna put it in my video. I was walking around the vendor floor towards the end of Sunday, and Nick Castle, Michael Myers, was walking around. He was, and it was so cute because he's just an older man now, and he was like checking out everybody's like vendor booths, and it was just a really. I was like, I went up to him and I was like, hey, I've met you a few times before, but I was like, I just wanted to thank you for that incredible panel yesterday. It was so, and he was like, oh, thanks so much. He's like, that was a really fun one. So, and it was just cool. It was a cute moment because I was just watching him look at people's like stuff that they make, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, it was fun that you guys came up.
Absolutely, we had a blast. Next year we might try to hit it up a little bit longer. We just planned on the 1 day pass, just because of our schedules. But we're going to be going back up to Tulsa in November. And what you kind of bringing that up, that you connected with the guy that runs it, like, might be kind of fun to invite him on, and like he can promote the Tulsa one, maybe for one of these upcoming like horror movie like things. You could reach out to him and say, hey, we're going to do a podcast on this horror movie. I can look at the schedule, and then we'd love you to come on, and you can just kind of use it as a promotion for the Tulsa, as you start getting guests, like kind of, we'll just spread it all over YouTube, and that'd be kind of fun to kind of get him, since you got that connection. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, he's, we're not like best friends or anything, but yeah, I mean, like, he's super nice. I've run into him. He's always at the events and stuff. Like, you don't get that a lot at the bigger conventions. So it's just nice. And the coolest thing about OKC Horror is like a lot of those people that they've all been together for so long, but they're like, when you hang out with them, they're just, they goof around, and they like give, even some of the celebrities that they bring, like I know Felissa Rose and a couple of the other ones, Susanna Malik from Mandalorian and stuff, like they hang out all the time, and they know each other so well. So they just, jab each other and all this stuff. But I've been to other ones where like the volunteers have been doing it for a long time, but it's not necessarily like, you don't get the family OKC Horror is like a tight, small, they're very thankful for whatever they bring in. And Rod told me, he's like, this thing can only get as big as you guys make it, because he's like, I can only do so much. And so like the fact that you guys come and support is really awesome. So, but yeah, I'll reach out to him.
That'd be awesome. Kristen, what would you say was your highlight from OKC HorrorCon?
Actually, the whole thing, it was so cool.
That's fine.
Well, when we first got there, and we spent almost an hour chatting with, Rodriguez.
Right, Tone Rodriguez.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Tone Rodriguez. I mean, he was just such a genuine, nice guy. Just to hear his stories, and he kept apologizing, sorry I'm keeping you, and we're like, no, this is fine, this is what we want to do. It was just that he's so talented, and we'll have a little surprise towards Christmas. I don't want to say anything, but so yeah, that was fun. But then the screen panel, that was so cool. Getting to see those actors in person, I love that, because they're people. And I told my stepsister we're going to a HorrorCon, and she was like, oh, and I'm like, no, they're not dressed up in their scary costumes, they're the actual people. And I love those stories. I like, especially when you find out how nice they are, and you're thinking, how can you play somebody so twisted? Like Skeet Ulrich was hugging everybody, and it was just really cool. I also like the Terrifier panel. That was super neat. Those ladies, they were super talented. And then what's that guy's name? The kid?
Elliot,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was so mature for only being 20. Good for him for taking his dad. He needs to have an adult around still. Yeah. And we watched the Terrifier that night before, so I knew what was going on, and really liked that movie too. So
yeah, that I think that was the highlight for me of the whole weekend. Of course, I loved everything you guys said. The screen panel was awesome. Asking a couple questions was really fun to do. I always try to come up with something that's like hopefully something that's a little bit different than other people ask, or comment on something that's not necessarily everybody else is going to comment. Because when you get in line, it's like it might already be asked, and you're like, well. So I'm trying to think of something that's a little bit off the beaten path. But
well, you did a good job because, like, you know, like what you just said. I mean, people asked. There was a few people in that line that asked the same question by the time they got up there, and for all you who weren't there, Sprang got to ask a really cool question. He quoted Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann film version, because Jamie Kennedy was on that panel and he was in that movie, and Jamie's face like lit up. He was so shocked that someone would bring such an abrupt thing out of nowhere.
And people cheered a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, there's other people that remember that, you know.
Well, and you didn't just say you delivered it with some theatrics, which was good. And I think Jamie appreciated that because he was, you know, there was mostly kids at the panel questions, but which is fine. I love seeing younger people, younger generation getting into this, but I think it was like kind of getting repetitive, like where he was kind of, all right, we get it. Okay. And for him to get love for something that wasn't Scream related, I think was like a big deal. So that was really cool. I actually enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And Skeet, we got to see Skeet before. He just was at San Diego Comic-Con 2 days. He got brought out on stage for Five Nights at He's going to be in the sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's with Matt Lillard. So
little Scream reunion. That's cool.
We just got to see him last weekend, and now he's in the huge San Diego Comic-Con. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Absolutely. I'm going to start saving now for next year's Frightmare though, because man, I'm going to be trying to get everybody's autograph, like the one chance.
Well,
you know?
I would be shocked if Frightmare does not do. I mean, we've already talked about it being a Scream reunion, but like it just makes total. Well, that's kind of what Lloyd, who runs Frightmare, he loves doing like reunion anniversary things, and then the Screamcast comes every like 2 to 3 years anyway. So it didn't go last year. So I mean, it's all adding up to be a gigantic reunion. So
we'll have to take the whole weekend for sure.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely want to come down next year because I was sad I missed this year.
We've got a couple of anniversaries coming up for movies or like re-releases. Like Jaws is coming out; it's the 50th anniversary. They're re-releasing that, and then I just saw yesterday that they're going to re-release Apollo 13 in IMAX. For the 30th anniversary
of that movie.
So and then in December, I'm going to have my buddy on, David. He's my best friend. We've watched movies together, you know, since we were teenagers, and I'm going to have him on, and we're going to do the 30th anniversary for 1995, our top 5 from 1995. Yeah, because it's just like there's you look at that list and you're like, it's nuts, nuts. You know, we did last year. I did the 1999 films, and there were a lot of really good ones in that year too. But it's always fun to kind of do those anniversary episodes because it's like you just kind of get a little nostalgic about those films. I mean, it'll be fun to talk about that with him. So,
and where you're at, you know, when those came out, like where you were in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Jaws one, we're going to basically do we're not going to do a live watch along with the boys, but we're going to record their watching of Jaws, and so basically getting their reaction, so someone could go back and watch the podcast with the movie and kind of do a watch along with us if they wanted to. But I thought that the boys would be fun to do that, and we'll post it on our regular Monday, but we'll record it, you know, kind of as a watch along type situation. So
I remember when Jacob
want to do the 4DX Jaws, because like I've gone to 4DX before for like a couple of movies, and Godzilla -1 was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like, was like being on. I was the only one. I went to like an 11 o'clock showing, but the seats were like a roller coaster. Like it was intense, but I was having such a good time. So I can't imagine what they're gonna do with Jaws. I mean, I know it's older, so they might not be able to add as much, but like
throw water.
I just.
No,
like 4DX,
they got sprinkled.
4DX, they put scents in the air, and they like when we went, Jess and I saw The Exorcist Believer in 4DX. That was the first movie we went to, and there's an earthquake at the beginning, and like the seats like
Mm-hmm.
lift up and they move, they shake, and then
That's cool.
they put like strobe lights, like stuff's breaking, and
Mm-hmm.
Godzilla -1 in the scene where Godzilla's chasing him in the ocean on the little boat. Yeah, like whenever he would when they would shoot the machine gun, the water they would like spritz you with water on the seats and stuff. Pretty
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, Jaws is gonna be. I gotta go see that on the big screen.
They have this thing in Austin too, where you can go and watch it in the lake. And so one of these days, because they do it every summer. So one of these summers, we're going to take.
We'll have to plan because I looked that address up, and it's like I think it's 15 minutes from where my dad lives.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we could like go chill up. My dad has a big house. We could go chill there, and then
that'd be awesome.
Go catch the movie.
Yeah, I think Alamo Drafthouse puts that on actually. So that's a cool.
Alamo started in Austin, so that like their first theater is there. But that would be fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm so scared. He's like, it's a lake. And I'm like, right. But there are sharks that have transitioned into freshwater. So
they have more.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah. That's so fun.
An alligator gar will come up.
Alligators. Yeah.
Got some weird fish in Texas. All right.
Well, let's jump into the movies. We're going to start with The Conjuring 2013. This is one of those series, James Wan directing. It kicks off things with Ed and Lorraine Warren, real life exorcists. They aren't sponsored by the church or anything, but they are like real life people that went and took these haunted things and they kept them in their house. And this is like our introduction to these people. There's actually a documentary on HBO Max right now that you can watch. This is like the real people. If you wanted to go get even more scared.
Yeah. So James Wan obviously started the Saw franchise. I mean, he's everything he touches, especially directing, is pretty great. But he had a few films to start out his career. And he actually hadn't directed a film when he did The Conjuring. He hadn't done a movie in about 3 years at that point, because he used to put stuff out. Even if he produced it, he used to put stuff out like every year. So it had been a few years. So he did The Conjuring, which was pretty, I want to say, I know it was 2013, but it was pretty groundbreaking because, I mean, none of us had seen especially like a paranormal type movie that was done so realistic and it was based on a real family. Like, most of the time you see those true story ones, they're like made for TV movies, which can be good at times, but like this is a big budget Warner Brothers backed movie, and James Wan was coming off of, the first Insidious movie. He'd already done the first Saw movie, and some other stuff. So like, it was pretty exciting that he was doing it. And when the first trailers came out, I remember people just being like, dang, that looks really good. And then it came out, and then it got really good reviews and word of mouth. I think at the time when it came out, it was the highest opening weekend for any, definitely for any rated R movie, but it was also the highest grossing for not independent horror, but I forget what the stat was, but yeah, it was like the biggest one at the time, and for Warner Brothers especially. But that's since been broken by Sinners, and I believe there's been 2 or 3 movies the past 3 or 4 years that actually broke it for Warner Brothers. But yeah, pretty exciting. Like, James Wan took a shot. We had like the Paranormal Activity movies in the early 2010s or whatever, and those did really well, but those were made on smaller budgets and obviously not based on true events or anything. And the style that this brought, and it just felt so real and so raw that like it made you pretty terrified. I mean, I remember that's one of it's hard for me to like have chills up my spine when I watch a movie, and going into theaters with like the surround sound and just like watching it with other people. And it did a good job. It did what it was supposed to. And I think it still holds up as like one of the best horror movies that's ever been made, honestly.
Yep. Yeah, this is one of those that when Chris and I first started dating, she's like, I do not like spiritual horror films. I can handle the Freddy's and the Jasons, but I do not want to watch these. And then one day in 2021,
Got a wild hair.
yeah. What do you find fascinating about this movie? Why do you? I know you probably don't remember exactly why you said that day, but something caught your attention. You're like, you know what? Let's watch it.
Well, it was in the middle of the day, and so that helps. It's when it's at night that I get even more scared. And I know we were kid-free weekend, and I just was like, you know what? I need to stop being so scared. Let me just do it and just see what it's about. And then, as it starts and it's like based on a true story, and I'm like, oh, geez, here we go. Like, but any type of religious horror really just freaks me out because to me, it's real. I do believe in spirits. I believe that there's energies out there, and seeing that, it just freaks me out. So anyways.
Yeah.
I'm glad you watched it. I like the story.
Yeah, it freaks a lot of people out. I mean, that's what's crazy.
To piggyback on that, I read a crazy thing. So when the movie first came out, they were trying. I don't know if the studio or if James Wan or whoever was trying to get it more PG-13, but they said no matter how much they took out, just based solely on how terrifying and real it was. They had to give it an R rating. Like, there's no gore, there's no sex, there's no any of that in the movie.
There's not language, but it's just.
And actually, in the Philippines, they did screenings in the Philippines, and apparently it was so crazy over there that like people were hiring. They brought priests in to like bless the theater or bless the people because they were leaving feeling like negative presence around them after they watched it. So it was so intense in the Philippines that like people were hiring, priests to do exorcisms. Crazy. Yeah.
Dang.
So I mean, it did its homework. It did a good job. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And I think Joey King, seeing her in this, when we watched it again, I was like, gosh, she just looks familiar. And she was a kid in this. I mean, she did such a phenomenal job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you look at the cast then to now, like, I mean, she's honestly the one other than, the two star Patrick and Vera, but she's really the only one that has like done a lot of bigger things. Like Ron Livingston shows up here and there, and he's been around for a while. He's talented, but overall, I mean, just a lot of those people you don't see them pop up as much as Joey King. So
yeah, and Liv Taylor, I remember her from Mystic Pizza. Yeah, she was. I watched that movie as a kid, and it just her performance during that movie just stood out to me. So
yeah, for sure. Kind of giving a rundown of the story. First Conjuring film kicks things off. Ed and Lorraine Wilson, real-life paranormal investigators, called to help the Perrin family. The parents have just moved into an old farmhouse in Rhode Island, and things spiral quickly. Doors slam, clocks stop at 3:07 a.m., and one of the daughters gets dragged by her hair across the room. The Warrens figure out that the house is haunted by a nasty witch named Bathsheba, who cursed the land and anyone who lives there. The story builds tension through that perfect blend of creaky old house horror and slow burn possession. Lorraine dives deeper into the spirit world and nearly loses herself in the process. By the end, it's an all-out battle for the soul of Carolyn Perrin in a terrifying basement exorcism. The scares are relentless, but what made it stick was the human heart at the center of it all. This isn't just about demons. It's about protecting families. Let's jump into like favorite moments. You got a favorite moment, Kristen, from the first Conjuring?
I think the clapping. When the clapping came from the dresser, that armoire, that was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. They were playing hide and seek and like the clap game, in the house.
Who plays the clap game? That's scary in itself. I mean, what? Hide and seek, but.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Josh?
I mean, the one that sticks out to me that especially when I saw it in the theater, just because of the sound and what was on screen, is when Lorraine Warren falls through the ceiling or whatever, falls through the floor, and then she's in the basement, and that whoever's basement looks like that. I'm sure a lot of them did back in that day. But my dad tells me stories about his old house in Iowa, and how spooky it was because it was, the laundry was down there. Everything was down there, but there was like no lighting. It was really scary. So they made that basement extra scary in The Conjuring. But yeah, the whole spirit. I think the one moment that really like had my spine tingling was she's like under. I think she's under the whatever cabinet or something in the basement, and the spirit is, you can see the feet but they're like floating, and then they like turn, like the feet just slowly turn, so that the spirit knows she's down there. I was like, whoa, all right, you better get out of there, Lorraine. But yeah, it's a crazy house. Like they I read an interesting fact about the actual true family, and I guess that house, like 8 generations of families lived there before the Perrin family lived there, and most of them all died. Like I think 11 of them died of like unusual whatever. There was a couple of suicides, a poisoning. An 11-year-old was like murdered. There were 2 drownings, 4 people froze to death. So like just some weird stuff. But it's in Rhode Island, and apparently Rhode Island has a thing where they don't have to tell you the history of like, criminal activity or anything so like the Perrin family had no idea because like also a salesman's not going to be like, oh yeah, all these people died in this house. You want to buy it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was very interesting. Like so many families lived in it. So, I mean, who knows some people probably didn't live to tell their story. So it's pretty crazy.
You think the neighbors would have said something, though? I would be warning my neighbors. I'd be like, hey.
You might not want... Yeah.
People just die, so.
Yeah. I think for me, other than the big exorcism at the very end, that's a huge epic, it moves beyond that kind of just being scary, like tense to being like just visually scary, like this crazy stuff is happening. So I think that's a big moment. But I think I also love anytime the sheets get pulled off or something like that, that's always like this scary thing, and the sister thinks it's the other sister, like, stop doing that. And it's like, no, it wasn't me. Like, all that stuff is just great. And, and then you always don't look under the bed, like when they look under the bed, there's going to be something under there. But yeah, that's the scary stuff for me. And I think, this ended up kicking off a universe. We aren't going to dive into all of them, but like even from, I guess it was Conjuring 2 really that kind of kicked off, because then they did The Nun after that, and then others. But like, and it kind of introduced like scary characters, in each of these different iterations, new scary things that they had to then take. Not to mention Annabelle. Like Annabelle, I think actually kicked off too.
Three movies, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely knows how to scare people. And we actually just saw an article recently that the Annabelle doll was on tour, and one of the guys died.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever figure out what?
Kristen and I were actually talking about that at OKC Horror this last weekend.
Was it like a heart attack? Do we know that he had, or because he wasn't that old?
I didn't hear the full. I need to see if they found out any more on cause of death. But yeah, pretty. I mean, the Annabelle doll and obviously they made it look extra terrifying in the Conjuring universe. It wasn't that scary.
It was just a Raggedy Ann dog, yeah.
But the whole putting it in a glass case and keeping it, like, you can go back and watch. They show some of it in the Conjuring movies at times, but the Warren's house, like, there's people who went in. This was before YouTube was a thing. Back in like the 80s, some people like got to tour that room, and they like showed everything off with Ed and Lorraine in the room and stuff. And I've gone back and watched some of that, and I'm like, you guys are like, what are you doing? Guy probably doesn't. Like, guy who filmed it probably isn't alive anymore. But
yeah,
I also did like the scene when the girls get pulled across the floor, only because of the effect, because it's stunt people obviously, but It reminded me a lot of like The Exorcist, like when Ellen Bernstein gets yanked. Like William Friedkin was a little bit crazy back then, so like they don't get away with, directors can't really get away with that stuff anymore. But like he messed Ellen Bernstein's back up because they had people with a rope attached to her and they just yanked her. But like
Man.
some of the stuff in this movie reminded me of probably like similar techniques, but they probably were more advanced at like protecting the stunt people and stuff. But I just enjoyed that part because it reminded me of older horror movies that I love a lot, which is
Yeah,
cool.
I've got a clip I'm going to be sharing this week on Instagram that to kind of promote the new movie, but it's actually that scene, and it shows like the behind the scenes like on top of the film, so you can see how they did it because they did it all like in one take kind of thing.
Nice.
So it's really fun, that behind the scenes stuff. It's awesome.
I'm a nerd for that type of stuff, so
Yeah, Zeke's kind of getting that way too. He wanted to watch. He's been asking questions about how certain things are made in the films, and like, was that real? Was that, how did they do that? And
nice.
so we watched the Force Awakens behind the scenes. It was like an hour kind of promotion behind the scenes thing for Star Wars Force Awakens, and so we watched that a couple weeks ago. He loved it. It's just kind of fun to kind of see this is how they created that we see.
Yeah,
wild. So
that's awesome.
Very cool. Well, let's jump into Conjuring 2. Conjuring 2. I'll give a little quick synopsis here, and then we can jump into it. Second installment. Warrens travel to Enfield, England, to investigate one of the most famous poltergeist cases ever: the haunting of the Hodgson family. A young girl named Janet becomes the focal point, and things get seriously creepy fast. We're talking floating furniture, possessed voices, and a gnarly spirit named Bill Wilkins, who insists he's the rightful tenant of the house. But it's not just Bill. A much darker force, Valak, the demon nun, reveals itself as the true puppet master. Lorraine's visions throughout the film lead her to the realization that Valak is targeting Ed, and things come to a head as she must confront the demon head-on before it claims her husband. This sequel builds on the first film's strengths while adding more layered supernatural elements and upping the stakes for the Warrens personally. There you go. Second film, I thought it was really cool too. When rewatching it this time, it opens with actually the Amityville haunting first, and they kind of start doing that exorcism, and then she gets this vision of Valak that we find out later is Valak, of the nun, and she starts freaking out, and then so she's trying to avoid these things. I did tell Kristen it is a little interesting too that in all of these episodes, Lorraine has faced something that Ed's like, no, you can't do this anymore. Like each one is the same thing, and then it's like they end up. Yeah, this is the worst one. But you said that about the other movie, so there is something funny about that. Just picking at it a little bit, but it is. But she, like in this one, like she's trying to avoid it, and he's like, no, we have to do this. We have to help this family. Like it took a while for them to be convinced to even go over there to England to investigate. But once they got there, they realized, yeah, this is nuts. And the room was locked, and yet they were still kind of getting into it and getting out of it and things like that. Like is pretty crazy. Yeah, the bedroom was locked, like with a chain, because they were trying to contain it in the room, and it ended up like not helping because the kid was still drawn into the room at times and all that stuff. So I thought this one did a good job with that. That slow burn was actually trying to convince the Warrens that it was real, like that they weren't just like the first one. It was kind of like they knew, she walked in and she kind of knew something was going on. And this one, it's kind of like there's a little bit of that hesitation on their part. All right, let's do some investigating. We got to figure out if this is real. And that was a bulk of the movie. And then they could tell the priest, okay, yes, this is real. You need to come do it. But by that time, it's too late. And they end up having to try and do it themselves. But that we do get introduced to the nun, which then kicks off its own series. Just good scares. What do you remember about this one, Kristen?
Well, I just know the nun itself. That was probably one of the scariest characters, I think, overall. And I'm not Catholic or anything, but, my stepsisters told me, or I guess it was Claudia, who's in law. Anyways, she grew up Catholic, and so she's like, nuns are scary, you know, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, then you see this, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I thought it was very creepy. The painting, the one that comes to life, yeah, scared me.
Yeah, that scene is terrifying.
Yeah, that was incredible. Like the camera panning over, and then you seeing the painting, and then the hands come around the painting, and then it moves through, just like,
well,
that was
very great. Like, I don't know if they have. I'm sure they have it somewhere, but I would love to watch behind the scenes on how they made that scene, because just from the shadow work to the shadow they probably just digitally put in later, but like just everything, how they made that work, and they did a great job of like making you feel like you're the one in the room looking at that, because the way they pan around the whole room, and then it ends up back on her face, and like just that, how terrified you would be if you were in that moment. James Wan does that a few different techniques of filmmaking, but like I just think that's really awesome, because it puts, especially if you watch it with surround sound, because like you hear everything. The music is, he always picks creepy, string instrument music, and it's just, it's pretty terrifying.
What was the item that they took? It was the spinning thing that was in the first one, right? The spinning top. What was it? What was it in the first one? The item that they took from the house?
Oh, yeah, it was like it had like spiral. It was like a mirror, like a
carousel
mirror. Yeah, it was a carousel theme.
Okay.
Because Vera Farmiga or Lorraine sees it in the basement or whatever, when she the spirit is like behind her or whatever.
Yes.
In the reflection.
Yeah, they do, because I think obviously the Crooked Man is also introduced in this movie, and he was supposed to get his own spin-off, but I think they just decided like, oh, this is a character we probably don't need to really,
It was scary enough in this one. There's nothing else.
He was a great character. He was scary in Conjuring 2, but I think he's more cartoonish. So like they probably didn't want to. There was already movies that were kind of in that style, so like they probably decided against it. They wanted to have the more real feeling paranormal type stuff. So
I think the Boogeyman that came out a couple years ago has a similar type, kind of just big.
Well, Boogeyman's, I'm sure he's got to be somewhat based on like Slender Man, just the way he's built. And then they've done a couple of indie iterations of that, but yeah, I don't know. The Crooked Man was a really awesome character. They have some awesome merchandise for the Crooked Man.
Yeah. You got the pop back there?
I have the NFT pop. I don't know what I did with it. And then I used to have the NECA figure that they had of it. And it looks really highly detailed, really cool, but I don't know what I did with it. But yeah, I thought that character was cool. But what I was going to say about the carousel mirror and stuff, I think a lot of the themes in at least the first two, there's a lot of like almost circus-like themes. So because I feel like Crooked Man's kind of like almost like a circus being
clown
of some sort. Yeah, wears a suit and the umbrella and stuff. But I thought they did a great job with all. It's pretty heavy. It's got a lot of like different characters that you got to get introduced to. But yeah, the Bill Wilkins that scene is that's probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. And it's crazy that the recording, the voice of Bill Wilkins, that's like they use the real recording of the real Janet in that scene. So like that Bill Wilkins voice is the actual real Janet, because there's a YouTube video you can watch of her talking in that voice. So they actually put the real thing in the movie, which I thought was cool. So
that is cool. And then the chair.
I'm getting chills.
Well, the way James filmed that scene was so awesome, because like, he was blurred out in the back sitting in the chair, and you couldn't see his face. And then he builds it up to that, jump scare and stuff. But
and this is the one too where they had the two different audio tapes, right? Where they had the recording. Was that this one?
Yeah.
So they recorded it, and oh, I didn't get her voice at all in the
Yes.
entire thing. And then they recorded there's another thing where Lorraine is talking, and it's like the tapes are talking back and forth to each other. That was
and then
really creative.
The sick scene where she's sitting there at the house by herself with the remote, right? Wasn't that where it would keep the channel kept changing because it was Bill changing it.
Yeah, and then Bill, that's when he jumped, the big jump scare where he jumps out and yells at her.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that was another scene with sound, where sound was a big factor of why it was so terrifying. Because, I mean, it came out of nowhere, and it was so loud. Him yelling was so loud, it scared the heck out of everyone. But yeah, it's interesting because James Wan, he almost didn't direct the second one. He got offered a ton of money to do the Fate and the Furious because he had done Furious 7. And he actually they offered him a ton of money to do that, but he turned it down to do Conjuring 2. So it'd have been interesting to see what would have happened. Because, I mean, the Conjuring movies, I feel like James Wan is the only one who can really bring these to life as well as he does. So that's why when we get to the third one here in a sec, it's not as solid, but like still cool. But yeah, it's interesting to think if he didn't do the second one, because I actually, my feelings out of the theater, I think I enjoyed the second one more than the first one, but I still think the first one is pretty dang solid. So
yeah, I think for me, like the Valak, her figuring out that this demon has a name, and then figuring it, I love the mystery of it. That's what I'm trying to say. The investigative nature of this one, of them trying to figure out what this is, and then like getting all the clues and figuring out, okay, now I know this demon's name. Now I have power over it. Like that was just a fun realization. And spiritually speaking or scripturally speaking, like you name something, it's a big deal. Like when you have the name of something, that's why, in Genesis, God invites Adam to name the animals. And it's this kind of like, I am responsible for you, or I'm not lording over you, but I'm in charge of you, So naming something is a big deal. And then when God renames someone, it's like they're kind of leaving their personal desires aside and following God with everything they have. So names are a big deal. So I thought that was kind of fun to kind of bring that into this, and that once she figured out the name, she was able to basically take charge and keep Valak from destroying her husband. So, but that was a pretty epic scene too. The storms, the lightning, the window crashing, all that stuff, and then her finally saving him, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him up and all that stuff. So pretty epic ending to that one too.
Super scary.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else about Conjuring 2 you wanted to mention?
They said that the events in Enfield are the longest recorded paranormal case poltergeist activity ever in the history of like that town. So
wow,
I think it's still ongoing. I'm sure they have plenty more people at occurrences, but yeah, just in general, like that area, I think is pretty haunted.
Would you ever go to a haunted house? Both of y'all. Would you ever actually
like an actual
confirmed
possessed house? I would. My family. There's a place in Iowa that you can take this tour, and it's this little town, and it's the Valeska axe murder house, and you can pay to stay in the actual house overnight. But people say that like all kinds of crazy stuff happened. But my brother and my parents, they took the tour. I wasn't with them on that trip. And we went to San Diego one time. We went to, they do a haunted tour in like the old downtown San Diego, which is like kind of Western style. It's like almost like a flea market. And then they have like old buildings and stuff. But we did the tour, and they took us in this building that's haunted. And we like sat around a table and tried to like, talk to spirits and stuff. Nothing happened to me. My mom claimed at the time that she heard something or felt something touch her or whatever, but who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah,
wow.
it was fun to go on. I mean, I didn't, and I've taken the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. I've done that
Yeah.
ghost tour like 3 times. So,
So I
but
want to do that one.
staying the night is another thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those old houses are I think the Stanley I would stay at only because they've modernized it. It's pretty nice, but
Well, you heard the story of Jim Carrey, right?
yeah.
I think you might have said that on one of the podcasts.
Yeah, so they filmed Dumb and Dumber at the Stanley Hotel.
Okay.
Same as The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they filmed so Stephen King wrote The Shining at that hotel back in the day, and then he wanted the hotel to be used in the movie that Kubrick did, but they only used some exterior shots but they filmed most of it in London at the soundstage and whatever. But
The Shining?
Yeah, so The Shining,
really?
the Kubrick version was not filmed at the Stanley Hotel, but the TV movie version was filmed at the Stanley Hotel.
Interesting.
Because King, he hates the Kubrick version to this day, so he wanted it. I think he directed the TV movie one, but he put everything that wasn't in that's why there was the like walking trees and stuff, because that was left out of the movie that Kubrick did. But yeah, so Jim Carrey, when they were filming Dumb and Dumber at the Stanley, he stayed in the room that King wrote the book in, which is one of the most haunted rooms in that hotel. And he was in there for like a few hours, they say, on the tour, and he came running downstairs and he was like kind of out of sorts. And he's like, "Get me another room like right now." And they're like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "I don't want to talk about it. Just get me another room." And so to this day, he still hasn't told anyone what happened in there, but he had something happen. And then there's another room right down the hall from that room when you take the tour, and they had to stop letting little kid, like they used to ask little kid volunteers on the tour, because there's this room that has a mini closet on the side, and that room, there was a rich guy back in the early 60s or 50s or whatever. He used to stay in that room, but he was like, I'm not sure if he was a pedophile, but he was like real, he was crazy, and some young girls got murdered by him. But the closet is like super haunted, and they used to ask little kid volunteers on the tour if they wanted to go in there for a sec. But then when I took my tour, they were like, we had to stop doing that because a little girl just recently had gone in the closet, and she like 5 seconds later was banging on the door, and she had like marks on her arm, like handprints and stuff. So they could have just been trying to hype the tour up, but that's what they claim happened. I hope that it wasn't that extreme, but yeah, it's a pretty crazy hotel. So I would stay there though, because it's got a staff, and but like those old houses that nobody's there and they're old looking inside, forget about it. Screw that.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same way. I think I'd be fine to go and like tour haunted houses, but I don't know that I would do a sit around the table. I even though I'm not a firm believer that the stuff exists, like there's too much evidence that it probably exists that I don't want to mess with it. And that's probably just my religious upbringing too. Like, just don't do that. Like even a Ouija board. Like I'm not even about that. Like I just don't want to mess with it.
Speaking of a Ouija board, did you know Target sells those now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
they're just like they're a toy.
I do a monthly Target toy hunt where I show off all the new stuff, and I went by this end cap of like just random stuff, and I was like, "Is that a freaking Ouija board?"
That's crazy.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
When we were in Montana with Jacob, we watched the second Ouija movie.
Nice.
It had higher ratings, and so we decided to start with that one.
That one was a good one.
But you didn't really need to know anything about the first one to enjoy it, so it was good. Crazy. What about you, Kristen?
I would not stay at a scary house or haunted house, but I did tour when we were in Franklin, Tennessee for David and Elizabeth's wedding. And y'all were doing your bachelor or men's whatever day, and I just had the day, so I drove to this I guess it was a house that was involved with the Civil War. And so a bunch of soldiers had died there and it was turned into a hospital. And so you could see where like the muskets had come through. It was a German house. And the guy actually built, he was a woodworker. And so you would see all this ornate stuff, but like there were bullet holes and everything. And apparently it was haunted. I didn't feel anything when I was in there, thankfully. But yeah, that was interesting. I wouldn't stay there though. No thanks.
Yeah. There's a haunted hotel in San Antonio, right?
Oh, yeah, the Emily.
We went, we walked by there, I think, when we were down there one time. A buddy of mine, Clay Morgan, he is an author, and he actually has written a couple of books about haunted stuff. Like I know one of them he wrote about haunted. It's like a kind of like similar probably to John Cusack's character in Room 1408.
Oh, 1408, yeah.
Because he basically kind of went and toured some haunted places, but he was doing that in research, not necessarily doing a tour guide of haunted places, but more like as research for what is it that we find so fascinating about hauntings and what's really haunted. Is it the space or is it us? You know, that kind of, he was approaching it from like a philosophical perspective. And then he also wrote a book about zombies also that was kind of a spiritual idea of are we just walking around, you know, without having purpose and things like that. So anyway, I'll shout out to Clay Morgan, PA.
Also, call back to our episode of The Monkey where we talked about 1408 if anyone wants to hear more about that.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into the third movie, The Devil Made Me Do It. I do have to say I like the taglines. Conjuring 2 is great as far as a name, but I do like the Devil Made Me Do It. I think it sets up the story really well. And it's also that kind of thing that you hear. I mean, I've just heard that, you know, from being a kid, you know, oh, the devil made me do it. It's kind of like just a phrase that people use and throw out. So I thought that was cool. And then I think for the new one, Last Rites, I just think that's a great name also for the movie. But just the names kind of stood out to me. I'll do a quick synopsis and then we'll dive in. This one takes a different route. It's less of a haunted house story and more of a supernatural murder mystery. Based on the real-life trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, it starts with the horrifying exorcism of a young boy named David Glatzel, during which the demon seemingly jumps into Arne. Later, Arne kills his landlord and claims demonic possession as his defense. This is the first time this had ever been used in U.S. court. The Warrens investigate what led up to this and discover a cursed totem linked to a satanic cult. There's a new villain this time, a human occultist who's deliberately spreading evil. The vibe is darker and more investigative than the prior two films, but still anchored by Ed and Lorraine's bond, which is tested more than ever. It's more of a thriller than classic haunted house horror, but still packs some strong supernatural punches. Josh, why don't you go first? You said you already have some thoughts on this one. I'll let you take it from the top.
Yeah, so this one, there's a lot with this one, not just because of James Wan not directing it. This one was directed by Michael, I think Chavez is how you say his name. He obviously, he did this one, but he had already done the Curse of La Llorona, and he also directed The Nun 2, so he has experience in the Conjuring universe, directing at least. But it's crazy. I think he got his start in music videos. He's really good friends with Billie Eilish. So he directed her video for Bury a Friend, and they are really good friends. So he started, you know, a lot of directors get their start in music videos. So he had some experience or whatever, but not a terrible. I mean, it's not as bad. I need to go back and watch it like a third time. I've only seen it a couple times, bits and pieces, but this one, not a ton of like huge name people other than Patrick and Vera, John Noble from Lord of the Rings and the hit TV show Fringe back in the day. He's in it as the main priest in it, and the Arne Cheyenne Johnson, they coined that they named it the Devil in Connecticut, which was that was what it was coined when like the news broke about it and everything. And there's another made for TV movie that's based on this same story. But
Okay.
it came out in 1983, and it's called The Demon Murder Case. So
Hmm.
not as fun of a name, but yeah, and that was actually directed by William Hale, who worked on the TV show Night Gallery, which was really popular. So it might be, I've never seen that TV movie, but I'm sure it's kind of interesting. It's probably got more accurate stuff to the story, but um, and then not a ton to say. I think the whole during the pandemic, this came out.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers was doing really. I mean, I don't blame them because they didn't have many other options, but they were doing a thing when the pandemic was like right smack dab in the middle. All their movies through Warner Brothers that came out the same day in theaters, they were available on HBO Max. So like people were already not really going to the theaters, and I logically it made sense for subscribers for HBO Max because then they have all this new content to watch. But at the same time, the theaters were dying. Nobody was going. We just didn't have big blockbusters either that were coming out to get people out in droves. So I think that really hurt the movie. And on top of not having James Wan return, fans kind of just were already, they didn't really want to see it in the first place. It doesn't have anything to do with a haunted house this time.
Right.
So you kind of just took that whole atmosphere that the first two movies give you, and it's just thrown out basically. And it's another true story, which is great. But I just think too many things happened around that time that made the film suffer the way it did. Not an awful. I mean, I've seen way worse horror films
Sure.
than that one, but I think it just the lack of excitement and it just took all the energy out of people appreciating the movie for like maybe even like the little things in the movie. So that's really I think what hurt it the most. But they do have a few callbacks to the previous movies. There's Lorraine receives flowers in the third one, and they're from the Perrin family from the first movie.
That's
so
cool.
she mentions, that the Perrin family. So that was kind of a reference. And I think there's a couple of nun references thrown in there, like in the background. I think one of the dressers has a nun figure based off of the nun from the Conjuring universe. And then there was one other thing, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, the main thing is it just had a really big uphill battle to try to put this movie out during the pandemic. No James Wan, available same day on Max, so like nobody was gonna go see it in the theater anyway. So yeah, it just kind of suffered. That's why I'm kind of shocked that they even are making the fourth and final one. I'm happy that they are, but yeah, it's just kind of crazy because I don't know if the third one would just, you didn't even really hear about. I mean, even advertising, like the first two when those came out, the trailers were epic. They kind of built up the tension right away. And this one, I was like, I think I was watching something on streaming and it popped up that there was a new Conjuring movie. I was like, is it going to theaters? I was like, I don't see James Wan's name on it either. I was like, is he not involved? So it is what it is, but still has some enjoyable moments in it for sure.
Yeah, James Wan is credited as one of the writers for it, but it could have been, I'm not sure exactly how involved that means he was, but
true.
But it's he's there. One of the other actors is Sarah Catherine Hook, was the girlfriend of Arn, killer character. Kristen and I saw her. First time we remembered seeing her or recognized her was in the Cruel Intentions TV show that was on Prime. And then
she almost looks like Reese Witherspoon. She could be her daughter.
Yeah. Throwback to the kind of callback to our episode just a few weeks ago for I Know What You Did Last Summer. We kind of commented on that TV show a little bit. But she also popped up in White Lotus, the most recent season of White Lotus as well. So it's just kind of interesting kind of when you and it comes up with other actors and actresses too. It's like, oh, I remember them from that movie. Oh my goodness, I've seen them in 5 other movies before that, but they didn't grab my attention, you know. And it's like in this one, you know, the TV show grabbed our attention, but it's like, oh well, she was also in this other thing that I'd seen 3 years earlier, but just didn't resonate with me as much. Kristen, what about you? What's something about, what do you call out about the third Conjuring movie?
The film itself didn't really like stand out to me as much as the first two. It did, like the waterbed scene, that one freaked me out a little bit. It just, it wasn't as scary, I guess. The one thing I do appreciate though is the costumes. I think that they put a lot of attention to detail, especially trying to give you the correct, like, whenever the time frame of when they're filming. You know, Lorraine always stands out to me, like she's always in the most trendy outfit. So that's the only thing that really stood out to me.
One of the scenes that kind of stands out to me was, so the Arn is in prison and he's in a hospital bed in prison, and it's like he starts to see things and the things in the shadows and stuff, and then he starts talking to it, and then it looks like he's the only one there, and then he cuts and he's not the only one there, and there's other people like guards or whatever and nurses and things like that. But just like having that where he's seeing something that nobody else is seeing, that was kind of one of the, that was probably felt more like those haunted house things from the first and the second one that I recognized. I did also, because there's that totem, there's that bone looking totem that they find is kind of controlling this evil. That gave me, along with the more investigative nature of the film itself, where they're in court, and they're trying to solve a case with the police, like all of that gave me a little bit of True Detective season 1 vibes, where it's kind of like that investigative, trying to figure out this killer, but there's these totems that are left whenever there's a killing. And also because it's a court case, that also gives me Exorcism of Emily Rose vibes. Shout out to Scott Derrickson, who's got Black Phone 2 coming out later this year, and we're going to do an episode on that. But so those, and also that's a PG-13 horror film. We watched that with the boys last year during October. So that was a couple of things. As I was rewatching it this time, I was getting a little bit of its hints of these other styles of films and TV shows that it felt like. I definitely feel like it strayed away, like you said, Josh, from the haunted house and more into like a police story trying to figure out, solve a crime. And it just happened to use demon possession as their defense. And how are we going to prove that? How do you prove that in a court of law? And all those dynamics of like, you know, what are we going to allow now if we're going to say demon possession? Like I was possessed when every murder is going to try and use this as a defense. Mm-hmm. So how do you prove that it actually happened?
Almost like an insanity defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I think I watched it by myself because we had watched through all of the Conjuring universe films, and then this one came out, and Chris and I didn't pick up and watch it together. I just kind of threw it on one night, you know, when I was by myself, just to watch it, just because I was like, I just want to see what this is about. But rewatching it again this time, I felt like with the other 2 Conjuring films, you know, their relationship continues to be the focal point. You know, Ed and Lorraine's love for each other, Ed and Lorraine's, you know, strength, and the way that they support each other is that glue that connects the proper Conjuring films together. So looking forward to the new one. That I am looking forward to that. Do you know, is James Wan back for that one?
He's been doing promos, but he's not directing it. It is. Hold on.
I got it's the same director. I grabbed it.
Yeah.
As the third one?
But I believe, I could be wrong, I think James is actually executive producer, though. Because he did a little promo when I saw, I think it was, I don't remember what movie I went and saw, but he came on and talked about, they wanted to do one more Conjuring movie. So I think he's an executive producer on it.
Very cool. I love the poster. That poster is really cool.
No, I think James Wan, because he honestly doesn't, I think he's only got one movie coming up that he's directing a movie called The Call of Cthulhu, which I don't know what, it's pre-production, so they don't have much information on it, but yeah, other than that, he did obviously Aquaman 2, and then he did Malignant, which I actually thought was pretty good, but yeah, he hasn't really returned to that true horror directing for quite some time, so hopefully he'll do that again one day.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely has been busy on the producing side, though. Tons and tons of movies. Saul just got bought back, right? The rights came up on that,
Correct.
so
Yes.
Blumhouse picked that up, right?
Yeah, so he'll probably he'll be involved somehow with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are they making more?
Yeah, but we don't necessarily what they had one scheduled to release this year, but that got pushed out, and then it got bought by Blumhouse. So they may be kind of restarting it. I don't know if we've heard anything. Have you heard anything, Josh?
Yeah, no, because it just happened recently, but we'll probably get some news because I think they did a big horror panel at San Diego Comic-Con yesterday, and it was hosted by Osgood Perkins. But they had Brie Larson was there, Dave Franco, which together comes out next week. And
Alison Brie? Do you mean Alison Brie? And not Brie Larson?
Oh, Alison Brie. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
But anyway, that movie has like 60 critic reviews so far, and it's at 100% Rotten Tomatoes. So that movie, we got the next 2 weeks. We got Together and then Weapons, which those two movies are like my most anticipated movies of the year. So I can't wait. But yeah, it's good. And then James Wan was supposed to do. It keeps dying out, but there's been rumors for like the last 5-6 years that he's going to do a Universal Monsters movie. I always keep hearing that he's going to do Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is my favorite. So that would be awesome if he did do that, but I don't know if that is ever going to happen or not. So
speaking of that, Kristen and I watched, it was a few years ago now, the one that Guillermo del Toro did, Shape of Water.
Yeah.
And we both loved that. We both loved it.
So cool. Such a good story.
Film. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Best picture winner too.
Yeah.
We watched that on the plane back.
Actually, I still have to get it framed, but when I met Doug Jones at Frightmare not this past year, but last year, Doug Jones was like one of the first celebrities that I met where I was like actually super starstruck, and just because he's such he's like our generation's Boris Karloff, or what, he just does character acting and creatures and stuff. So I found a poster for Shape of Water that was already signed by Guillermo del Toro. So I bought that. This guy shipped it to me. It was a really great price. Took it to Frightmare, and then I had Doug, because he played the creature in that movie. I had him sign it, and he told me that it was Del Toro's autograph. He was like, "Where'd you get Guillermo's autograph?" And so I can't wait to get that frame, because Shape of Water is a very beautiful film.
Yeah, Sally Perkins, you got to get her autograph on there.
I know, yeah. She I don't see her name even at private signing. I don't see her name pop up. Not that she doesn't do them, but she has. But yeah, she's a little bit tougher. I would love to add like Michael Shannon and just to get as many people as I possibly can.
That'd be awesome. Speaking of autographs, I did get Lee Whannell's autograph at Oklahoma City HorrorCon. Kristen is right behind you if you want to pull it up and show the audience. That'd be awesome. But I had to. That's my first pop autograph.
Yep, the original, the OG Ghostface.
Yeah. He was just like a grandpa. Like, I would just go and let's go have some coffee together, and tell me your stories.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
I got his auto in a mystery box years ago, but I love that 8x10 that they chose, because that opening scene is still one of the greatest scenes ever made. So,
yep.
Just funny looking at him, like, how, you aren't scary, but then I'm like, obviously he's behind a mask.
He's a stunt guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's well, when we were hanging out at his table when you got that auto, I forgot like some of the stunt work that he's done. There was a picture. He had an 8x10. Oh, Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. He was a stuntman when Green Goblin turns with the serum and then he throws that scientist out the glass. He had 8x10s of him like getting thrown out of the glass, which when we were at his table, I was like, I didn't know you did that. That's pretty cool. Very fun.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, POPpaGoss, for being on the episode. This has been so much fun to have you back, and looking forward to seeing you again in Tulsa. And we'll probably see you again on another podcast here too. As long as you're willing, man, I'll have you on anytime. So it's good stuff.
I am always down whenever you need me.
Cool. Well, thanks, Kristen, for you being on the episode as well. This has been exciting. So go see Conjuring, the last Rites this Friday. And if you want to catch up on these other movies, I did see they're all streaming on HBO Max. So if you wanted to do your own watch party, you could do that, gearing up for the movie. So thanks, Josh. Appreciate you.
Bye, Josh.
Bye.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Again, you can check out all of our links at bio.site/moviesthatmakeyou. Feel free to drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, keep watching movies.